Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay. I call our program to order. Welcome. My name is Chris Hearsey, and I am the co-founder and chair of the board of directors for the Space Court Foundation. Thank you for joining us today for our first online orientation for the 2022 IISL Manfred Lachs Space Law Moot Court competition co-hosted with the International Institute of Space Law. This summer, the Space Court Foundation signed an agreement to serve as the official host of the North American regional round of the competition. And I'm excited to take the next steps in promoting and growing the competition with the start of today's program. I also want to thank my co-founder and executive director, Nathan Johnson, for his hard work and dedication to serving the North American regional, serving as the North American regional organizer of the competition for almost half a decade, where he has nearly doubled the number of competitors who have competed in the North American round. A few weeks from now, on October 10th to be exact, it will be the 54th anniversary of the day that the Outer Space Treaty went into effect. Since that day, almost 54 years ago, we have seen significant growth in space activities. As a result, new and novel technologies have pushed the limits of space law in many areas. These challenges require us to think about how our profession is preparing lawyers and policymakers to address issues from space debris to setting up communities in space. I believe that few programs help prepare young lawyers for these new challenges more than the IISL's Manfred Lachs Space Law Moot Court competition. As a former competitor, coach, and judge, I am honored to be working with the IISL to expand and grow the competition in North America and globally. Today, we have invited the regional organizers from North America, Europe, Africa, Latin America, and Asia to participate in the first panel dedicated to discussing the IISL Manfred Lachs Space Law Moot Court competition. We have also invited former competitors to reflect on their journey as law students who prepared and argued space and public international law arguments against other law student competitors. To start the program, we have invited senior leaders from the Space Court Foundation and the International Institute of Space Law to introduce themselves, their roles, and the importance of the IISL Manfred Lachs Space Law Moot Court competition. To begin our program today, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Kai Uwe-Schrogl, President of the International Institute of Space Law. Dr. Schrogl leads the IISL, which is a global association for space law with individual institutional members from almost 50 countries. The IISL's key mission is the promotion of further development of space law and the expansion of the rule of law in the exploration and use of outer space for peaceful purposes. In addition to his duties as IISL's president, Dr. Schrogl is currently seconded from the European Space Agency to the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy in Berlin. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Schrogl. I now turn the program over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris and Nathan, for inviting me. Thank you for setting that up. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody here in this virtual room. Now, what could be more exciting than to stand in front of 3 judges of the International Court of Justice? Well, it can also be scary, besides being excited about that, but it is something really big. And this is only provided by the IISL Manfred Lachs Space Law Moot Court. So the International Institute of Space Law has something really special for you, but you have to succeed, first of all. And when you stand in front of the 3 judges, I think you have already reached something really, really remarkable. Well, this is number 1 in the attractiveness of the Space Law Moot Court IISL is organizing. The other one, and I think almost on equal footing, is that the topic of our moot court, space law, is also really something special. Space law and space activities in general are, well, simply remarkable and breathtaking. It's something inspirational. It's more inspirational than a lot of other technology fields because it is also about dreams. It is about the future. And you are part of the future when you are investigating in space law and when you are participating and competing in the space law moot court. Now, the moot court is one of, today we would say, the flagships of the IISL. It's one out of three, if you name it more traditionally, pillars of the Institute. And Chris has said that IISL is the global association of space lawyers covering all continents and encompassing around 50 countries in its membership. So this is one of the three pillars. The other two are our colloquium at the International Astronautical Congresses, which usually leads to proceedings, which certainly most of you know and use also for your studies and in preparing also your participation in the Moot Court activities. And the third pillar is around additional activities like the Galloway Symposium in Washington, D.C., and the IISL ECSL Symposium, which we usually host at Vienna during the legal subcommittee of the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. Now, most recently, this third pillar is strengthened, and we have added a number of new formats, also due to the pandemic and the way we are communicating and working now. So virtual formats like the Knowledge Constellation and the IISL Happy Hour, to which I would like to invite you at this point very cordially. Now, in all our activities, and this has already been raised, we should recall that we are here in IISL to promote the rule of law in outer space. And this is a very important and also noble cause. The Moot is a wonderful mechanism for that purpose, and it stimulates, first of all, the young generation of space lawyers, so you, but it also brings the most prominent academics and practitioners together. And I must say, I'm always challenged when I read the arguments and the cases, and I usually learn a lot when participating, not really participating, when I'm watching the proceedings of the competition. So this Moot is marvelous in building on the ceaseless work of the leadership, the committee, Skip, Les, and Melissa, who have really performed outstandingly throughout so many years. And I must say the Institute is very, very much indebted to them for this wonderful achievement. We are also grateful for a lot of sponsors, in particular in the various regions, without whose active participation and also financial contributions, we would not be able to host and to organize the competition with such a fantastic participation of so many institutions in so many areas. Now, this Moot is, and I indicated that, really reaching out globally. It has a global ambition, and this is beautifully expressed in the participation today of the regional organizers and coordinators, whom I would also welcome very cordially to this session. And I'm really glad that the youngest of these regional coordinators has taken the initiative to provide this platform. And I very much thank Chris and Nathan for doing so. We are now organizing the Moot Court competition for the second time already under pandemic conditions. And in that constellation, of course, physical meetings are not possible. Everything is done virtually. This, of course, is on the one hand a problem. On the other hand, it also created additional opportunities for broadened participation. But you can be assured everybody, really everybody, is happy when we hopefully next year, which will be Paris, the IAC in Paris, be able to again meet in physical attendance. And then indeed, you are not only facing the three judges of the International Court of Justice on the screen, but in person, and all those who are participating will have the opportunity then in a rather familiar atmosphere at a cocktail to also address them and talk with them. And this will certainly be an experience of a lifetime. So thank you again for organizing that. I look very much forward to hear the exchanges and to meet a lot of students and young people who are interested in participating in the new edition. And I'm really glad that our flagship, the IISL Manfred Lachs Moot Court competition, receives such a strong interest, and I'm pretty sure that everybody who will participate in it will see that it's a wonderful experience, which will be absolutely exciting and inspirational for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kai Uwe-Schrogl, president of IISL. And I want to take a moment now to thank the IISL for having appointed me as regional organizer here in North America. And I want to take a moment to talk about why the Moot Court competition has meant so much to me. I competed in the 2013 and 2014 competition. In 2015, I went on to be a faculty advisor assistant. And then I was out of school. And then I was no longer eligible to compete in any way. 2 years out, all those check boxes. So I joined as the assistant regional organizer for a couple of years before eventually taking over the position. And I've been regional organizer for the past 4 years. And one thing that I always try to mention at the competition, whether it was at the awards reception after the North American region, or whether it has been during the pandemic on video in front of everyone, always talk about community, the sense of community that you get from the Moot Court competition. And the people that you meet, the collegiality of talking with the other teams, even if you compete directly against them. And again, when we're in person, the opportunity to meet everybody afterwards and meet the judges, even if they asked you really hard questions that stumped you and cost you a point. The opportunity to talk to them afterwards and ask them about their careers and get to know them and possibly follow up with them after the competition. But by competing, whether or not you win, you become a part of this community of the IISL, of space lawyers internationally. And it's been a wonderful gift to me, and especially during this pandemic, when it is possible to feel so isolated, but to remember that you are part of this larger group and this larger community. So I just wanted to mention that it means a lot to me. This sense of community is also something that I sought to build when I co-founded the Space Court Foundation with my colleague, Chris Hearsey. And it means so much to me this summer, the agreement that we signed with the IISL for the Space Court Foundation to become the exclusive host of the North American region, to be able to use the infrastructure and the staff and the facilities that we are building up here at the foundation to help host the IISL Manfred Lachs Moot Court competition and to help contribute in this way. And with that, I'd also like to pivot towards talking about one of the people who preceded me in this role, one of my mentors and actually the originator of the moot court competition, Dr. Skip Smith. Skip Smith is in private practice and is co-chair of the Sherman and Howard Law Firm Space Law Practice Group. Skip has been an IISL member since 1986, was president of the Association of U.S. Members of the IISL for many years, and helped start the IISL Manfred Lachs Space Law Moot Court competition in 1992, and was regional organizer of the region for over 20 years. Skip currently represents launch service companies, manufacturers of space-related equipment, and other aerospace companies. He has held several significant space law leadership positions, including having served as both Director of Space Law at U.S. Space Command and Chief of Space Law at the Pentagon's Air Force Headquarters. Skip also served in Geneva as the legal advisor of the 50-person U.S. delegation at the 1988 ITU conference on the geostationary satellite orbit. Skip has an LLM and doctorate in space law from McGill University and has authored a number of leading publications, including the book International Regulation of Satellite Communication. He's a frequent speaker on space law topics, and Skip has negotiated deals and litigated disputes. He has considerable alternative dispute resolution experience and is a mediator and American Arbitration Association arbiter. Skip also worked for 2 years in the Office of the Legal Advisor, U.S. State Department, and is a former chair of the Colorado Space Business Roundtable and the Aerospace Law Committee of the American Bar Association. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce Dr. Skip Smith.
Thanks, Nathan and Chris and Kayuvi. Thanks for participating. I'd like to start by giving a brief history of the Manfred Lachs Moot Court competition. As Nathan mentioned, I was part of a small committee back in 1992 that came up with the idea of having a space law moot court competition. In 1992, the World Space Congress was in Washington, D.C. World Space Congress is kind of like the IAC now, and the IISL was having its meetings there as part of the World Space Congress. Typically, the host would put on an event for the IISL, very often a lunch or a dinner with a keynote speaker, something like that. And in brainstorming, our small committee came up with the idea of, what about a moot court competition? And at the time, Manfred Lachs was the president of the IISL, and he was also president of the International Court of Justice. So we thought, hey, maybe we can get some ICJ judges to judge. Long story short, we put it on. The first year it was open just to law schools in the Washington, D.C. area. So I think there were, I believe 3 schools that participated, picked the top 2, and then they argued before the ICJ judges, which was Manfred Lachs, Judge Guillaume, and Judge Schweibel. So that was the first competition. It went off very well, and it was held at Georgetown Law School, which has hosted most of the North American region competitions. So it went off so well that everybody was excited and said, well, next year we're going to have a European competition, and we'll take our winning team against the US winning team, and we'll have a moot court competition at the next IAC. And so we did that, and the US competition grew. I was the regional organizer for the first, I think, 24 years about that. And so Nathan, you only have 20 more years to go. We had the US competition. The US competition ultimately grew into the North American competition because some Canadian schools wanted to participate, including McGill. The European competition grew, and then after a number of years, Asia Pacific said, hey, we'd like to have a competition, a regional competition, and participate. So we figured out how to do that. And the AP region has grown to our largest region. Then after that, our friends in Africa said, we'd like to have a regional competition. And they put on a demonstration round. and demonstrated the ability to organize a competition. And we now have, for many years, the African region. So we had 4 regions for a number of years. And then Latin America decided we'd like to have a regional competition. And they had a demonstration round for a couple of years, developed the organization and funding for a regional competition. And this is the first year that they're fully participating in the Manfred Lachs competition as an official region. So we have 5 regions now, pretty much cover the globe. We've grown this from 1992, 3 law schools participating, to approximately 100 law schools around the world now that participate in this competition. I often get a call from a law student somewhere in the U.S. who wants to chat a bit, and they always say, you know, what can I do to become a space lawyer? How do I get involved in this? And the main thing I tell them is participate in the Lachs competition. You know, do well. You'll meet other space lawyers who are judges. I'll say you'll learn a lot. This is the main thing I think people can do to get into the community that Nathan talked about. And if you do well, I've seen a number of people get jobs from the Lachs competition, basically impressing a judge who happens to be a general counsel of a space company, or somebody like the NASA general counsel, who's often a judge in the North American round. So it's a way to get your name out there and get some recognition. It's very important. So it's a great competition. And we have been challenged, as was mentioned, the last couple of years, including this year, in doing virtual competitions. Last year was virtual, came off pretty well. This year we were hoping it would be in person, but it's going to be virtual. We made that decision about a month ago. There were just too many of the regional winning teams that were impacted and couldn't travel. So we felt the fairest way was to have everybody participate virtually, even though we encourage teams that could travel to go to the IAC for the experience and to meet the other space lawyers who would be there. So we're doing it virtually this year. As Uwe mentioned, it's in Paris next year. I'm going to be there, and I expect that we have another year to get out of this COVID nightmare. I think we'll be, hopefully all of the regions will be in person next year for the 22 competition, and the international competition will be in person with our ICJ judges. So I think I've covered what I would like to cover. So Nathan, I'll turn it back to you, and we can move forward with the regional organizers.
All right, thank you very much, Skip. Let me promote our regional organizers to their panelist position and invite them all onto the screen.
Nathan, I seem to have misplaced my agenda. What's the order that we want to go through regional organizers?
I was just going to go through the order in which the regions were sort of constituted and
Okay.
stood.
That sounds good. I know that.
So, yeah. Oh, there's one more I can think of. Okay. All right. So, yeah, Skip, if you want to just introduce us all and then ask us to start one by one.
Sure. The let's see, Nathan, of course, is the regional organizer for North America from within the Space Court Foundation as of recently. And he's done that for 4 years and has done a great job in growing the North America region. Rosanna Hoffman is the regional organizer for the European region, and we're sure indebted to ESA and ECSL for helping on that competition. We have Adi K. Adi, I don't want to try to pronounce your name because I'd probably butcher it, but we'll hear from you soon. Who is our AP or regional organizer, assisted by Francisca Susanto. I think I can pronounce that one okay. And they're in Indonesia, and in 2022 the AP conference will be in Indonesia, and we really look forward to that. Indonesia has hosted before, and it's always been marvelous. And then we have, do we have our African organizer on? I don't see her name yet.
No, we've lost her for the moment.
Okay, well, we'll wait for her to show up. And then Jairo Becerra is the Latin America regional organizer. Jairo, thanks for putting that region together. Really, it's been out there. We had some teams from Latin America that participated in the North American competition, kind of on an ad hoc basis, and it really needed, that region needed somebody to just take it and run with it and really pull things together. And Jairo has done that, and we really appreciate it because it's just marvelous now to have Latin America as a formal region. So those are the regional organizers we'll be hearing from, telling us a little bit about each one of their competitions. And Nathan, we get to start with you.
Thank you very much, Skip. So I am excited to talk about the 2022 year of the Moot Court competition in North America. Although, Skip, there was one thing that might be of interest to everybody here, and that only you as chair of the Moot Court Committee can talk about. Can you tell us about this year's problem?
Yeah, I can tell you that it was released yesterday and is on our website. Apologies for, it was a bit of a late publication of the problem this year, but we got a good problem, and it's on the website. So basically all the teams can get to work.
All right. Yeah, logistics for this year's competition. We are planning for a return to in-person competition here in the United States, in North America. So first step, what do you need to do to take part in the competition? You need to register. Our registration form is now live on the Space Court Foundation website. If you go to spacecourtfoundation.org/laxmoot/registration, you can register for the North American region of the competition. We ask for the name, title or class year, and email address for all of the faculty and team members on the team. And we also ask that you identify who should be the point of contact. Once you register for the competition, you can expect to receive individual forms asking you to sign a competition agreement. Also, your point of contact will receive an invoice for your registration fee. Once you sign up for the competition, as Skip said, the problem is online on the website. And once we complete this panel roundtable of the regional organizers, perhaps we can read the competition compromise to everybody to find out what they'll be arguing about. So once you get the competition problem, start reading over it. The first deadline to keep in mind, and this is uniform across all the regions, is if you have any questions our need to ask a clarification on the problem. The deadline for submitting a single request for clarification is December 15th. So that is the first deadline you have to keep in mind. And then the next deadline you should keep in mind is your memorials. The Manfred Lachs Moot Court competition is, I think, somewhat unique among Moot Court competitions. You have to prepare memorials for both sides of the argument. Please read both the international rules and the regional rules with regards to the requirements for your written memorials. We have moved, even before the pandemic, to an all digital submission process for memorials. No longer do you have to race to FedEx to get your memorials overnighted to get in on the deadline. But do be careful about any potential computer problems you may have if you are coming up against the memorial deadline. Exact dates will be posted on the Iisl Moot Court website for the competition, but memorials in North America are generally due by the end of February. And then you have about 3 weeks to focus exclusively on your oral arguments. For the North American round, we are targeting either the weekend of March 25th and 26th or April 1st and 2nd for in-person competition back in Washington, D.C. We have spoken to Georgetown University Law Center. Their campus is open. They do require vaccination status in order to be on campus. We will continue to communicate any COVID-related restrictions that Georgetown University asks for people present on campus. But we're happy to be returning there for the competition, and we're looking forward to having another record-breaking year in terms of the number of attendees. And then, of course, the winner of our region will compete against the winner of all the other regions at the IAC in Paris in the fall of 2022. And so at that point, we'll wish them all good luck. There might be a little bit of jealousy, but if you are still interested in attending the IAC in Paris, I would encourage you to talk to your university or your employer to do so and continue to be part of the IISL community and the international space community at large. I will post the link for North American registration here in the chat. And again, if you have any questions, you can reach any of your regional organizers. We all have official IISL email addresses. For North America, it's laxmoot-northamerica@iislweb.org. And I'll also post the contact information in the chat as well. If you have any other questions, please feel free to use the Zoom function to post your questions. And once we get through all of the regions, we'll take a moment to answer Q&As once everybody has gone. But with that, I would like to hand it over to my co-part in the European region, Rosanna Hoffman.
Nathan, thank you so much for that. And thank you also for inviting the ECSL or me on behalf of the ECSL to talk a bit about the European rounds, the European region rounds of the Manfred Lachs Space Law Moot Court. What I'll do is I'll just give a brief summary of what the ECSL is. Not everyone participating today might know what it is, then talk a bit about the history of the European rounds, and then of course what might be most interesting to especially European students here, how the 2022 rounds will look like on a European level. So maybe briefly what the ECSL is. It's the European Center for Space Law, which was established in 1989 under the auspices of the European Space Agency. And it is as such part of the legal department of ESA, and it has board members, and it has an executive secretary, which is which I am. And in this function, I have the honor and to organize the European rounds of the Moot Court, and they have, as has been mentioned before, already been organized since 1993. So really a really long time. At the beginning, only 3-4 universities took part. It took place at the Iisl headquarters in Paris the first around 10 years. And gradually, with the help of ECSL members, we were then able to really organize the European rounds with a co-host university. So each year, the ECSL organizes the rounds together with the university around Europe. For example, we've had Greece, we've had Finland, we've had Poland, Holland, the Netherlands, etc. So we've had so many countries, and every year we really try to have a completely different country that will host. And on that note, maybe of interest is next year's Moot Court. So as you all know, this year was online, last year was online, and it was actually supposed to take place in Vienna, Austria last year, this year as well. Both years were not possible, as for so many of you, everything was done virtually. But hopefully, and we're working on this, the Moot Court will take place in Vienna, in Austria next year on a European level. What else is there to say? I think the rising number of universities that are taking part in the European rounds just goes to show how important this Moot Court is becoming. If we think of it from a European level, in the 90s, beginning of 2000, we were talking of 3 to 10 universities, and the number has just been steadily growing. And this year we had a record number of 27 universities from around Europe that took part in the memorial phase. Sadly, a few universities then dropped out to the oral phase, but during the oral rounds, we had 24 universities take part in the Moot Court, which is an unbelievable number of universities. So, you know, you have to think of having 40 judges take part in judging the oral rounds, 10 timekeepers, etc., etc. So really fantastic. And it just really makes me very happy to see that there's such a large interest in this Moot Court, especially as I myself took part in the Moot Court in 2020. I actually was part of the team that pleaded against the New Delhi University in the final world rounds, and we had to bow our heads to New Delhi University that will share their tips on how to win the world round. But it was a fantastic experience, and as Kai-Uwe also said, to be able to plead in front of ICJ judges is a one time in a life possibility, an opportunity that you really have to use this opportunity if you can do so as a student. So yes, and for me it was life-changing, and I think that for so many others who are here today who took part in the Moot Court, it was life-changing, and for you, for 2022, it might be as well. So all I can say is please register, take part. Maybe also another information, the registration form for the European rounds will be out at the beginning of October, because we have an ECSL board meeting on the 1st of October, and then the registration form will be finalized. But there's already information on the ECSL webpage for the European rounds that you can read through. And of course, you can contact me on the ECSL email address anytime should you have any questions, or ask them also, of course, here in the chat, and we'll answer, or I'll answer it later. But from me again, thank you for letting the ECSL share its views and organization of the European rounds, and I really look forward to as many or even more registrations as this year. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Rosanna. Thanks for what you do over there. It's a big help. Next, we move to the AP region, and Francisca is going to be giving us, there you are, Francisca. Nice to meet you virtually.
Nice to meet you too.
So tell us about what you've got going on for next year there.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much. Let me introduce myself. My name is Francisca. I'm the representative from Asia Pacific. So in this region, actually we will, maybe until now we still decide we will go in virtual because of almost all of Asian countries still in the red zone for the COVID-19. So it would be better if we waiting until maybe December, so we will decide if it will be in the person or maybe just an online, because far as we know, so many Asian countries under the red zone and the vaccination rate is really low. So maybe, yeah, our university still didn't give us permission. So yeah, until now we still decided it would be in the online moot court. I hope all of you understand if you will help even in the 2022 if we held in person moot court competition. It will be held in the Malang. Malang is like one of the city in East Java, so you can Googling it. That's the big city, like another regional, but we hope that we can serve you really well there. And for the judges and the panelists, we already have a lot of this with the judges as well. And the committee also, we already make a really great team in Indonesia too. So don't be afraid if you have anything to ask about the competition, you can send me email or Miss at the email. Yeah, every time if I can reply you as soon as possible, I will reply all of your questions. And that's all I think from Asia Pacific regional. I hope we can you can send me email every time. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Francisca. And the Moot Court Committee is here to help you and Adi as needed. And we also have kind of a Moot Court Committee subcommittee led by Stephen Freeland, who I know communicated with, and they're also available to help out. Let's hope it works, that it'll be in person, but we absolutely understand the need to be looking at online again for that region of the country. You have so many schools coming from so many different countries. It's different from certainly like North America, and also much more geographically dispersed than even Europe and Latin America and Africa. So you've got a large task ahead, and like I say, call on us whenever you need that. But thank you so much for the work you're doing. I think you'll see how rewarding this is for not just the students, but for the coaches, the judges, and the organizers. The organizers tend to stick around. Like you see, Nathan's been here for 4 years. I did it for 24 years before I took over the committee, and it's near and dear to my heart. And I think you see this community that Nathan talked about. It's really important to all of us, and really kind of a labor of love. So thank you. Let's see, I don't think we have Namfuniko from Africa on yet. Is that right?
No,
Nathan?
Skip. I received an email from her, and I do have some notes to pass along from her regarding the African region.
Why don't you do that then?
These are notes coming from the regional organizer for Africa, Nomfuneko Majaja, chief director at Department of Trade and Industry for the Republic of South Africa. She would like me to pass along that in Africa, there will be specific invitations to most universities, and those invitations will include a schedule with timeframes for processing in the competition. The African region is trying to attract as many schools as possible, so I believe that there will be no fees. Our fees can be waived for registration in the African region. The major sponsor for the African regional competition is the South African National Department of Trade and Industry, as well as other countries, agencies as well in the African continent. Process for the competition will start in November. So I take that to mean that registration will open in November. And the target is to hold the regional competition in mid-June in Africa. So, so keep those dates in mind. I've also posted all of the regional organizer email addresses here in the chat. It's also available on the Iisl's Moot Court website. In the African region, they are still open to all new sponsorship opportunities from either industry or any nation's governmental bodies. And I believe that covers the notes for the African region.
Awesome. So let's go to our newest region and turn it over to Jairo.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Nathan and Skip, for this invitation. Thanks to Kayuf and everyone within the Institute for belief in the project. It's the opportunity also to thanks Marco Ferrazzani from the European Center of the Space Law for giving us all the support for this dream in our region. How has our process been in a few minutes? First of all, we believe that cooperation is key to promote and organize the competition. And without its project like this will simply have been impossible. Without the contribution, for example, Laura Gamarra from Colombia and Eve Romero from Paraguay, Juan Manuel Faramignan from Spain, Marta Gaguero from Uruguay, el Professor Olavo from Brazil, and Mercedes and Victoria from Argentina, it will have been impossible. Thus, in Latin America, round, we have gone through several stages in the process to have a promoting and sponsorship strategy, which is still very young, but is consolidating. In the first test round, we managed to partner with our university, the Catholic University of Colombia, and this allowed the university to sponsor the competition. Thanks to its projection and visibility in the near future. In other words, we solved the project. Now, in the first test round, we understood that universities should always be the center of competition and not so much government agencies, such as space agencies in the region. We have designed a competition that changes every year from country to country. In other words, having a different annual organizer to help to promote the Moot Court. The first year, it was held in Bogota, Colombia, here in Bogota, Colombia. The second was virtual, of course, for the pandemic. This year, while it was in Lima, Peru, it was not in person, but there was a local organizer. And it was so important for the competition or consolidation to the Moot Court. And the following year, it will be held in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. We are waiting for you next year in Punta Cana, a beautiful place in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. And we hope see you many teams from Latin America. Okay, continue. During the second test round, we focused on combining sponsorship efforts between universities and an organization that will be interested in regional promotion and not only in national visibility. We saw how the Latin American and Caribbean Space Network, in Spanish, Relaca Espacio, could be a perfect sponsor, and it was. We achieved a compromise that will give stability to competition. Relaca support allowed us to have the confidence of having the financial backing to sponsor the Moot Court competition. In addition, to be able to get top regional judges. By doing the Moot Court allowed with the international meeting of the network every year. Already in the third stage, being our first official round, we understood that the organizer of the competition every year could ensure the prize for the winning team to go to the world round. The Relaca network support the regional competition and give us the judges, and the Catholic University of Colombia provides support for the regional organizers. Finally, in the near or in the coming years, we hope continue build this alliance between the university of the region, the Relaca network, and the annual organizer of the Moot Court. We are currently doing together with the Catholic University of Santos in Brazil and the Catholic University of Colombia, for example, the first course in space and policy law in international cooperation in Latin America. The Professor Olavo, everyone knows the Professor Olavo of Brazil, and I, we received 32 students, and some were left out. We considered it's a successful course. Professor Olavo and I am very happy, since is this directly result of the Moot Court and the dynamics it's generated from the promotion of the space law in Latin America. As I say at the beginning, it's everyone's triumph. Finally, in Latin America, the registration begins in October for the next competition. We expect registration ends in February of the next year, and the competition will be held in the month of May in Punta Cana. Thank you, Skip. Nathan, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for what you're doing in Latin America. It's great to have that fifth region now. Before I turn it back to Nathan, I want to say I got a chat here about whether there's new rules for 2022, and there are. And I was looking at the website here. I'm not finding them. I am finding the older rules. So we'll take action. I'll send some emails out today, and we'll get the 2020 rules posted. And as we said, the 2022 problem is now posted on the website. And it looks like there's some chat about information on dates and things like that. We're giving you the regions have the dates as best as they can. Again, there's a little uncertainty, particular on in-person versus virtual regional rounds. We hope all or most of them are in person, but that'll depend on events of the next probably 4 months or so before final decisions are made on that. We'll keep dates up as best as possible, but I think all the regions typically are at about the same time. I know North America is usually late March, early April. So, okay, Nathan, I think we're done this round of the program. So I'm going to turn it back to you, and thank you and Chris once again for hosting this webinar.
Thank you, Skip, very much. We did have one question in the Zoom Q&A section And it's directed at North America, but if any of my other regional organizers feel that it might apply to their region as well, feel free to speak up. The question is, for the North American competition, will there be a hybrid option instead of competing in person? Right now, we are not planning for a hybrid option because of the constraints of our host venue. However, I did want to say that for, I think, the first time, we have added an accommodation question to our registration form. So if there is any reason why you would like to request any type of accommodation, please feel free to note that in your registration form. It does not affect your ability to register for the competition at all, but it does let us know how to best enable you to be able to take part in the competition. I don't know if there are any other regions wanted to comment on the possibility of hybrid competition. Francisca, I know you said in the AP region, it's the other direction from hybrid, it's going to be all virtual there.
Yeah, for Asia Pacific, maybe until now we still decided will be online moot court. But we will give you as soon as possible the information in the link, maybe the schedule as well. Yeah, we will still trying to make it what is better. But maybe until now we still decided will be online.
Okay, thank you.
In Latin America, we will try to make it face-to-face, but it will depend of the evolution or pandemic evolution. But it's we will try to make it face-to-face.
Yes, and maybe just a comment from the European rounds as well. So currently we're also working on having it in person in Vienna. A hybrid option is not being planned as such, but of course we're going to have to be flexible as we've been the last 2 years with everything. So if the current situation evolves in a different direction, it's getting better currently in Europe, but should it not be so next year, which of course we're all hoping is not the case, then we'll have to be flexible and think of hybrid or virtual options. But maybe just one more point that I forgot to make, also because I read the case before joining the session today, is that I mean, the ECSL has a lot of other events for students, also non-students as well, but there's a specific event mid-October about AI, quantum, and blockchain applications and its legal implications in outer space. That might be interesting to some students after having read the case. Maybe just putting that out there. So yes.
Thank you, Rosanna. Skip, while we still have you, this is a question that perhaps you can answer. Are there any significant changes to the 2022 rules that teams should be made aware of?
The only change that I can recall that is significant is that it reflects participation. And participation, we had, participation, we've clarified the rule that it must be basically an educational institution that is providing the team. You can still have students from different educational institutions as long as one is the sponsor of the team in essence. But for example, Inns of Court, other professional institutions may not sponsor a team. That's the only change, and we'll get those new rules up on the website very quickly.
Okay, thank you very much, Skip. And then Skip, I wanted to offer you the chance, since it's on the website, did you want to read the brief compromise of this year's problem?
I'll give you that honor.
Okay. So this is from the Moot Court website. This is the formal synopsis of the case. I would say that my pronunciation should not be taken as the official pronunciation of the parties, but here we go. This is on the mootcourt.iislweb.space. Synopsis of the case. Candidia versus Zenobia. Case concerning registration and damages involving objects manufactured in space. Candidia and Zenobia are two small nations with growing space sector activities using many new technologies, such as 3D printers and artificial intelligence, or AI, to manufacture space objects in outer space. Candidia's Valerian 806 satellite is part of a mega satellite constellation. It was manufactured in space and deployed to low Earth orbit from the PASM space station. Valerian's owners defaulted on payments due. The creditor contracted for the Phoenix 3 satellite registered in Zenobia to take possession of Valerian 806 and to relocate it to another orbit. In the process of taking possession, both the Valerian 806 and Phoenix 3 satellites were destroyed in an explosion. Most of the fragments burned up in the atmosphere, but some pieces survived atmospheric reentry. Tragically, one large fragment of the Phoenix 3 satellite struck a cargo plane of the Candidia military in flight, which crashed into the ocean, killing all 9 persons on board. Unable to reach a resolution to their dispute by diplomatic means, both parties have submitted their claims for compensation for damages to the International Court of Justice for adjudication. So there you have it, folks. This year's parties, Candidia versus Zenobia. That synopsis and the full-length compromis are available on the IISL's Moot Court website, which we will post here in the chat one more time. I'd like to thank all my fellow regional organizers. It has been great to meet all of you. I look forward to an opportunity for us to all be able to meet in person. Thank you for joining me on this webinar today. And before we adjourn, I'd also like to give a big thank you to Skip Smith as chair of the ISL's Moot Court Committee and as one of the co-founders of this competition. Thank you very much, Skip, for establishing this competition of which we are all contributing to.
You're welcome, Nathan. It's really been my pleasure. And thanks again to you guys for putting on this webinar. I'll need to sign off now, but leave it in your good hands.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
All right, so if you'll give me a moment, we will shift gears in our program now, and I will be inviting a past Moot Court competitor to speak about how their experience in the competition has aided them in their professional development. Give me one moment. And I am happy to be joined by Steph Tai. Steph, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Nathan, and thanks. I'm honored to be here. I don't know if you had more to say before.
I'm just sort of winging this as it goes along. Steph, you are currently a professor of law at the University of Wisconsin Law School. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So when I first met you, I didn't even realize it. You had brought a team to the competition, but you yourself were a competitor. without asking you to name the year, what was it like when you competed?
I'm fine with naming the year. It was in it was in 2000, so I'm older than I look. But it was a great competition. It was the first time, I think. Well, maybe it wasn't the first time, but it was at Georgetown. I went to Georgetown for law school, and it was fantastic seeing teams from all over. We had a problem that was kind of an environmental problem. It was about a satellite crashing and who had liabilities for what. And I joined it because basically I'm interested in environmental law. I didn't have any background in space law before, but I learned a lot from that competition, both in terms of just in general arguing international law, writing the memorial, putting together all of that. We ended up getting best brief, and just we were finalists in the oral arguments.
So your background, your interest at the time, environmental law, you go through the competition, you learn about the body of space law. Did you take space law as a specific focus after the competition?
Well, I lucked out in the sense that I had the opportunity to take space law as part of my professional development. That is, after I graduated, I clerked for a while, and then I went to the Department of Justice to work as an environmental attorney. The thing is with the Department of Justice is that different types of cases get sorted into different divisions. So even though they don't necessarily seem to fall into a certain division, some things get sorted there. And so one thing is that all takings claims, that is claims that the government took someone's property, falls under the environment division. And so one time, this case comes up, and it's the case that many space lawyers have heard of, Nemitz versus NASA, and it was a takings claim, a claim from someone who claimed that NASA took their asteroid by landing on the territory, landing on his asteroid without paying the takings, without paying a parking fee. And so the case, when in our office, when we assign cases, little blurbs would come out about all of these, and people were like, what is this space law thing? And I'm like, me. I was on the space law team in law school. I should get this case. And that was compelling enough. So that's how I accidentally ended up with the only US published case on space law.
Yeah, I mean, that's what astounded me. We sometimes talk about, space law is this forward-looking thing, and we don't have a lot of space law cases on the books and we have to compare it to other things, but there's that one. There's that one case, and by virtue of the fact that you could say I competed in a space law competition, you were able to be on that case.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's exciting. Everybody now has gotten to meet the person who worked that case.
But it was also helpful in general for professional development, because I think due to my space law moot court competition and success at it, I was able to be placed in the appellate section of the Environment and Natural Resources Division, where it was selected for people with these kinds of appellate skills. So that also, in terms of general job skills, it helped out really well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to close with was, what do you hope that no matter what background someone comes into the competition with, or how far they make it in the competition, and however they end at the end of the competition, what should students be keeping in mind as the key takeaways of having gone through this?
Yeah, so there's first just general space law knowledge, but then there's also just general writing and research and oral argument skills. These come into play even if you're not thinking about being a litigator, right? Being able to talk in a concise fashion is helpful for negotiations, transactions. All of these are professional skills that you will practice by practicing for preparing for moot court. The other thing too is just the people kind of element of it. You get great networking opportunity, not just among the people who are judging you, but also other teammates, also your own teammates. So not just other teams, but your own teammates. You can become very close to them. I still am fairly close to my moot court teammate, even though we didn't know each other prior to competing. And these types of relationships can last for a lifetime. So I want to emphasize that as well.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up earlier, but I remember the teammates I had, they were from the moot court board at my school. So they had visibility into a lot of other different moot court competitions. And the thing they said to me when they competed was like, it's so weird that the teams at the space law competition, they don't hate each other. They're not like squirreled away apart, giving each other, like the eye from across the room. People are talking to each other, meeting each other. And it seems to be something like, like you said, within the team, meeting these people, getting to talk about a subject like space law, but also meeting other teams as well. I think this openness is one of the, lucky hallmarks of our competition.
Yeah, and I can echo that too, because I'm also co-director of our moot court program at University of Wisconsin. And so I see the range of competitions, and this is by far one of the more collegial competitions around.
Well, I'm gonna take that compliment as something good to end on. Steph, thank you so much for joining us on today's orientation and for sharing the benefit of your experience and how the moot court competition has impacted your professional career.
And thank you for having me. And good luck, everyone.
All right. So, folks, I just want to remind everybody that the recording of this orientation will be available on the Space Court Foundation website. You can find our website at youtube.com/C/Space Court Foundation. And I'll just put that in the chat. All the competition information should first be available on the ISL's Moot Court website, mootcourt.islweb.space. You should have all of the Lachs Moot email addresses in the chat. They're also available on the ISL Moot Court website. Please feel free to reach out to any and all of us in your desire to register for the competition. And we have one final portion of today's orientation, and that is a special video from the team that won the 2020 World Finals. So I will go ahead and play that video for you now. They give a lot of great advice on how to compete. And again, by virtue of the fact that they won, advice on how to win the competition. So give me one moment. It is my pleasure to introduce the international champions of the 2020 IISL Manfred Lachs Space Law Moot Court Competition from National Law University, Delhi, Abhishek Jain, Shubh Arora, and Anmol Dhawan. So my first question, what did you do to prepare for the regional competition?
Hello, good morning, good evening, and thank you for having us here. Lachs has been a great experience, and I'm sure we'll be able to share a lot more today. And specifically about the regional competition, we started from absolute scratch. Didn't have any idea about space law. So initially we started reading a bit about international law. So that is where the base comes from. So before the problem came out, we had a general knowledge of international law. Then we started with the basic books of space law to get a preliminary understanding of how the law has developed over the years and what are the gaps, general treaties, what are the understandings of that. And you can get some commentaries, the Cologne commentary, which specifically talks about the provisions. So that is where a base came from. And then specifically going into the problem, One thing we did is we read the problem every day amongst us. We discussed it from different perspectives, broke it down. We got this guidance from seniors. For any mood, you should read the problem day in and day out, every day, multiple times, so that you can get the nitty-gritties, the very facts that they've left, the loopholes within it. This is something we did every day. After that, we were very lost initially, so we prepared a basic structure. We divided the issues amongst us. Some teams do it like that. Some teams, all the people work on the same issue. So for us, we divided each issue for one member, and then we started working individually on that to prepare a basic skeletal structure. So this was our base, which we had to develop further into arguments. And then we started, once that structure was ready, we argued it, played devil's advocate, argued from both sides so that we knew our core structure was ready and this is what we were going to argue later. This was done around January, a couple of months before the regional memorial submissions. Till then, we hadn't prepared anything for arguments. That comes at later, like oral arguments. All of that comes at a later stage. So once our core structure was ready, we started researching further, getting into the finer details, coming with the first draft of arguments individually. Everyone works on their own issue, which was compiled around the middle of February or towards the later February. That is when our whole memo came together, and we understand that there are a lot of internal inconsistencies within the memo, because some person might have one idea of liability, another person might get a different definition of liability, and they would contradict each other. So we went for uniform language, uniform arguments, reviewed the memo again and again. And this is a very important thing. Usually teams get done with their memorials, but they don't put enough time in reviewing their arguments, which is the main stage. Everyone will get a memo, but how do you make sure that your memo is the best in the region and in the world? Because that is what you're going to speak at the end of the day. So focus a lot on your arguments. That is what we did. And we got a memo reviewed by our faculty advisor to get some inputs in that. And one thing we got, our base memo was fine, but it was nothing extraordinary. So we had to work on creative arguments, out of the box arguments, as they say, because Lachs is looking for novel interpretation. We have standard interpretation from experts. Just putting that in the memo won't help you. So you want to apply it in a creative way, use your innovation to the given factual matrix. All the treaties are pre-2000, and your problem is going to be 2030, 2040 or something like that. So you have to apply your mind to come up with something new, and that is what they're looking for, in my opinion. And that is what made us stand out. So this was our preparation for the regional was all about memorials, because in 2020 the oral rounds were cancelled. We just had a memorial selection. So because of these few things which set us apart, we could get the best memo rank and win the regional rounds.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, in 2020, in the Asia Pacific region and many other regions, the oral arguments had been canceled. It was based solely on memorial scores. But once you did get out of the regional, how did you start preparing for the international competition?
Right. So after we cleared the regional competition, we knew that our memo was actually very good because it was approved by multiple space law experts. So we knew it was good. But Manfred Lachs allows you to revise your memos after the regionals are completed. So we sat through Zoom calls for probably weeks, and we discussed our memorials, and we found quite a few inconsistencies. Anmol talked about reviewing the memo. We did that, in fact, before submitting our memos for the Asia Pacific. But despite that exercise, when we sat again, we found a lot of inconsistencies, minor inconsistencies that could have cost us the final international competition. So we kind of ironed out those inconsistencies. And then came the stage after we submitted the final memorials, then came the stage for preparation of oral rounds. So the one disadvantage that we had when compared to other regions was specifically European region and the North American region, that they had regional rounds where they did participate in the oral rounds. We did not have that. So they had the kind of experience, the kind of exposure that you would want going into the world finals. And we knew this was a big stage. We could not really mess this up in the world finals. We were reminded by the organizers that this is probably a once in a lifetime opportunity. So you have to make the best out of it. So what we did was that we contacted a lot of people from across the globe. We prepared an Excel sheet and we mailed them that we have won the Asia Pacific rounds, and we would be very happy if you could devote some time to plead with us, take our pleadings, and give your valuable feedback. So we prepared this Excel sheet. We contacted a lot of people. Few of them responded, few of them did not, few of them wrote over mail and gave their advice to us. So with what we had from the beginning, we then moved on to having around 40, 50 pleadings by the end of it before we actually participated in the competition. And our focus was to plead with people from across the globe to have a multicultural experience, because we knew that the judges in the international rounds, they are having multicultural backgrounds, and even in the world finals where judges of the International Court of Justice, they had judged it, and we knew that we would have to change our speaking style, the way we deliver, our demeanor. All of that we did change over time, and thanks to a lot of people who agreed to help us during our pleadings. And yes, as I spoke about changing the way we speak, it is very important that as speakers, we speak very slowly and very loudly. So this is something we had to change, because it is a natural inclination that we tend to rush when there is pressure, and we tend to kind of bite on the words. So that is one tendency that we had to take out of the scene, and a lot of pleadings day in and day out helped us with that. And eventually, I would say on the semifinals, it was a great experience. We argued against, I guess, the Georgetown University, excellent competitors. And after that, we also got a month to prepare for the final international rounds with the University of Vienna. And again, the experience that we got from the semifinals was again very, very helpful in the finals. And yeah, it was very fortunate that we ended up on the winning side.
Would just like to add a bit to it, that what I think most teams do that as well, but these pleadings with 60 experts, these were from every country, African region, Australia, USA. One was from a staff judge of the US force. So we always get fixated with the result at the end goal, and it was the same for us. It was all about winning the competition, but actually this was the process. The 60 pleadings that we did, I think that was the great experience, because not only that let us know ourselves better, where we lag, what are our strengths, and all of those are our arguments, but also the experience, the networking, and this is what has helped me later, even a couple of years down in my career, in my applications and everything, knowing all of these people, networking. So this was something that was really great and a huge part of the Lachs experience, because virtually it's very difficult. You get limited to your team and your teammates and don't know anybody. But this was really wonderful to know all of these people and their views on space law and policy.
And I think that's something great to point out, is even though there were limitations during the pandemic on actually competing in person, so many people were getting used to being present virtually that perhaps you had access to more international persons than you might have had before the pandemic, because everybody was so ready to be present virtually. So you competed, you won, congratulations. Now that you have gone through this process, what advice do you have for students and current competitors who are preparing for the Moot Court competition? What should they expect from the competition, and what might they see from their experience after they're done competing?
Definitely. So I think that that's actually a very, very important question, because even as Anmol also mentioned, when we came into this competition, we weren't very, very sure about what to expect. We had just opened our, our books in the library that had space law written over them on day one, and that's kind of where we started, because we were extremely, extremely clueless as to A, what is this area of law, and B, how exactly do we go to prepare for something like the Manfred Lachs Moot Court competition. So I think it's very important to understand that Manfred Lachs as a competition is a very, very prestigious competition, and it is also a very, very competitive competition. And I think it goes without saying that it is very, very scary when you get into it. But I think that that's also what the fun of the whole competition is, because you're going against the best from every single university all over the world. And I think that's what makes the whole experience all the more exciting. So that's that. As far as I think just getting into the competition for any competitor goes, I think that it's very, very important for just anyone out there to understand that this is a very, very important team activity. You cannot work alone, right? And I think that's one of the most important things that you need to understand in a moot, especially like Manfred Lachs, given that it's a moot that lasts for about a year. And it's probably going to span for about a year and 3 to 4 months if you've already started preparing both before the problem comes out. And that's a very, very, very long time to spend with 2 more individuals. So I think it's really, really important that you always try to look for, when you're making a team, that you're trying to look for people who are either compatible with your working style and are also at least aligned with your interests with respect to why they're doing this moot. Because I think that becomes really, really important. So for example, in our case, we were all very fortunate that being from the same university and also studying together, we knew each other and we were also friends before we actually took this moot court. And that really helped us out because that actually improves the team dynamic about how exactly you're working, and it also eases a lot of other things. I think I want to make a really, really quick mention over here about the importance of being very smart when you're picking a faculty advisor or your coach for this moot court competition. So the Manfred Lachs competition allows you to actually pick up a faculty advisor and also an assistant advisor from your own university. I think it's really, really important that when a team is picking such a coach, they make sure that this is somebody who at the very least understands international law, or it'll be great if they know international space law, but that's not always the case when you're looking for a coach in universities where this is not a core subject that is taught. And I think another thing that you should definitely look for when you're picking such a coach is that they should be somebody who has, at least at some basic level, understood what mooting is as an activity, right? Because that really, really helps them, in being able to guide you as a team, and also to make sure that you're focusing on the right things at the right time and you have the right mindset as a team when you're approaching anything. I think that both my teammates have beautifully covered the whole process, but just to give a very, very quick summary for anyone, if they're using this like a checklist of sorts, I think the first thing that you should do when you make a team is, as I think Dhawan, as Anmol and Shiv have mentioned, is that you make a very, very detailed Excel sheet, which is like a planner of sorts, which, where you're able to tally out, okay, these are the dates till when we're going to all read the problem collectively. These are the dates when we want to, meet together and have a first draft, or these are the dates when we would want to have the skeleton, so on and so forth. But the point being, it's extremely important that you're very, very clear about those dates before you get into the process. Because what actually happens is once you get into the process and then start fixing dates, you just keep delaying the dates repeatedly because you're always like, oh, wait, I think I need another week to just perfect this argument. And that 1 week never gets over. So I think that's really, really important. Another last thing that I would actually want to add as something that I think I learned after having completed this competition is that given that this competition gives you the opportunity of working on your memorial twice, once at the respective regional and then at the worlds, I think it's very important that, as Anmol mentioned, that in the regionals, we were all preparing on, let's say, one given issue or one particular argument that we wanted to perfect in the memorial. I think it's extremely important that we also add here that in the preparation for the world rounds, we focused a lot on having all 3 of us grill every single argument and every single issue. And I think that makes a very, very, very big difference, because the reason that it helps is when you've all been working in different compartments of, let's say, issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, and so on, when you all come together and, everyone's coming in with their different ideas, everyone's had different readings that they've done over the course of the last 6 months. Every single person is like a mini expert in a different area of international law or space law. And when they all come together on that table to, let's say, just iron out what the final argument should be, I think that's what actually gets perfection. And that's what makes it a winning memo. So I think that's something that's really, really important that a team should look out for. And the last comment that I'd probably want to conclude with respect to just the preparation aspect is that another thing that I think our team did, and I think this is something which depends largely on the kind of access that your university has, is that we also did look at the moot memorials of the prior competitions of Manfred Lachs. And I think that's something that helps a lot. Because it gives you an idea as to what exactly your memorial should look like. And the reason that I'm making this remark is because the Manfred Lachs Moot Memorial is extremely, extremely important in the way the moot is structured. And it's also very, very different from a lot of other moots. So this is something that really, really helps out when you've looked at the Moot memos for, let's say, the past 2 to 3 years. You get a much better idea as to what exactly does the winning memorial look like. And also it gives you a certain idea as to what kind of innovative arguments may or may not be appreciated, right? Because you get to see them in those memorials, and then you can be like, okay, so if this is something that worked for the team in 2017, it may just work for us to, probably make a parallel argument of this in 2020. So something along those lines, because it gives you a very, very good idea that way. I think just moving to the last part of my answer, which is with respect to what exactly has this competition given us. I think it's given us a lot in terms of the three of us as a collective, as a team. I think it's given us, like for each of us, at least to speak for myself, it's given me 2 wonderful friends who I had the opportunity to work with for a year. And that's something that's always going to stick with me for the rest of my life. And I think that apart from that, as Shub very rightfully mentioned, that this was a once in a lifetime opportunity when you're actually going in and pleading before sitting judges of the ICJ. And I think that that's, again, a memory that this competition has given us that's going to last with us for as long as we're there. And that's just brilliant. Apart from this, I think individually, it's actually given us a lot. In terms of the type of organizations that we've been able to join and work with. For instance, we're also working with the Space Code Foundation also. We're a part of one of the teams, and we're carrying out a lot of research work with the definitions team, which is very, very exciting. And it's a very exciting project, because the aim of the project is to just try to come up with a library that is accessible to all. And that's something that we as a team really, really resonate with, because when we were doing the competition, we realized that there is a huge dearth of resources that you can get freely on Google or just in your library, and so on and so forth. But I think to elaborate a little more on how this has individually helped us, I think I'd want to also hand it over to Anmol, because I think I think he'll be better placed to talk about this right now.
Since we have a paucity of time, but I'll shortly just tell how it's contributed. Since I just graduated from law school, firstly, it helped me a lot with my LLM applications. My applications were solely pivoted around Manfred, Lachs, how this experience has led me to the next stage of my life. I spoke about my experience with the ICJ judges and preparing and all of that in my statement, motivation letter for LLMs. And I got admission to some schools in the US, such as Berkeley, Penn Law, and Cornell, and a couple others, and also in Leiden University for the Space Law program. So this was a very important thing for that. Plus, it has helped with my work in organizations like the Space Code Foundation, the Space Generation Advisory Council. So I think once people are done with Lachs, they should move ahead and contribute further to this area. SGAC and SCF are 2 very good organizations which bring the voice of young people to international fora, international organizations on emerging issues of space law and policy. So I think Lachs has been a wonderful experience. It has helped me develop skills, innate skills, research, analysis, and all of those, which happens with all of the teams, but also opened a lot of prospects. So to end this thing, I would say that don't look at, we get very invested in the process. We think of winning, getting that trophy, and that is all we are looking at. So we think it is an end. But the Lachs competition is a means to an end. It's not the end itself. It will open hundreds and thousands of doors after you finish the competition. And that is what you should look at. So whatever stage you exit at, if you win, if you end at the semifinals or at the regional competition, see that you have got something out of it and how you can take it further as a part of your life, as a part of your journey, and as a law student. So all the best to all the teams, and hope you have a wonderful experience.
Thank you all for sharing your experience. We all greatly appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this orientation session. I want to thank everybody for attending, and all of our panelists, the fellow regional organizers, Steph Tai, the 2020 winning team, and of course, Kai Uwe-Schrogl and Skip Smith. The recording of this orientation will be available on the Space Court Foundation YouTube channel. I've put that link in the chat, youtube.com/C/Space Court Foundation. We have other video programming on our YouTube channel, including our Space Court video series with panels on hot topics in space law and policy. We also have the Women of Color interview series hosted by Nivi Raju. And we have 2 new programs, Stellar Decisis, an animated series about the adjudication of future space law disputes, and the Spacebar Show, a comedy variety series talking about space law and policy topics. Also, there are opportunities outside of the Moot Court competition to participate. Rosanna mentioned an event on AI from the ECSL in October. The Space Court Foundation also has programming, as well as the internship program that was mentioned by the 2020 winning team. You can find more about our Space Court Foundation internship program on our website, spacecourtfoundation.org/internships. And I really invite everybody to look into that if that is something that they're interested in, to augment their learning during this time. We do firewall our interns away from the Moot Court competition to make sure that there is no unintended transfer of information about the competition. And then finally, I do want to mention that the Space Court Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit. Our primary fundraising is through sponsorships, but we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/spacecourtfdn, as well as a merchandise store featuring images and things from our YouTube videos. The Space Court Foundation merchandise is at celestialobjectionsapparel.com, and proceeds go towards the nonprofit. So again, thank you everybody for attending. Please reach out to us, myself, or any of my fellow regional organizers. We look forward to having you in the competition this year.